Hello, welcome to the Ask Microsoft Anything session, specifically around Windows backup and restore options. I'm Nate Nielsen. I'm part of the Windows Commercial Engagement team. And with me, I have some lovely representatives that are going to help out when it comes to answering your questions today. Let's start off with Shilpa.
Thank you, Nate. Hi there. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. From wherever you're joining us, I am Shilpa Narang. I'm a senior product manager for Windows Backup for Organizations. I specifically focus on the backup and the IT Pro manageability piece. Excited to be here with you all and looking forward to hearing your questions. But before we get started, let me hand over to my amazing colleagues. I'll start with Iman, who will give a quick intro, followed by Miranda, and then we'll get started. So over to you, Iman.
Thank you, Shilpa. Hi, everyone. My name is Iman Huang. I'm Principal Software Engineer Manager at Microsoft. I lead the engineering team focused on delivering reliable, secure, and innovative Windows experience for both consumer and commercial. Excited to be here. Glad to be able to answer some of your questions. And now hand over to Miranda.
All right, thank you. As Shilpa and Iman mentioned, my name is Miranda Leshke. I am a product manager on the same team as both of them. I am focused on the Windows Backup for Organizations feature that GA'd back at the end of August. My focus was specifically on the restore half of the feature. And so while Shilpa owned the other half, I can answer your questions regarding restore.
All right, perfect. So just a reminder for everyone, feel free to visit aka.ms/AMA/backup-restore if you want to participate in the session or ask questions. And then let's actually start off with the very first question, which is, does Windows Backup for Organizations support hybrid joined devices?
At the moment, we are not supporting hybrid joined devices due to some engineering work that's necessary for that. And we are working on that feature to come soon. So if you are interested, you can be on the lookout for that in early 2026. That is, I should clarify that is specific to the restore part. So it does support backup on hybrid devices. We just can't restore on hybrid at this time. But that will be coming.
Yeah, you can already start backing up your hybrid devices right now with already GA feature. And then, like Miranda mentioned, starting in February, we will have the restore available.
Excellent, awesome. Let's move on to the next question. Can I use this feature to back up and restore app settings? And if so, which apps?
Okay, I can take that. So today, the offering offers the capability to backup and restore Microsoft Store app list. It does not backup and restores app settings as of now.
All right, excellent. We'll give it a little bit before we have another question coming up through here. Anything else you guys want to talk about, though, from kind of a product perspective, just in terms of what you guys have been working on, or anything else you want to chat about? Or highlight, perhaps?
Yeah, I think, yes, we, like Miranda mentioned, right, we have recently announced the launch of Windows Backup for Organization in August. Currently, it offers the capability to backup and restore user personalization settings and Microsoft Store app lists. And through this offering, we aim to simplify device migrations, reduce the total cost of ownership of Windows in your environment, and improve resiliency in your organization. So yeah, that's what we are aiming at.
Excellent, perfect. So question, well, one quick thing. So you can actually go to aka.ms/Windows Backup Organizations to get more info on the GA announcement. And then question from X, can I initiate backups on demand or only on a schedule?
Yep, I can take that. So backups happen if an IT admin enables the backup, which is through a group policy or an MDM policy. The backup happens every 8 days. And yes, we can also initiate on-demand backups, and that is through a Windows Backup app.
And I will add on to here that when it comes to restore, that is currently only available during the Windows out-of-box experience. So restore cannot be initiated on demand at this time. When hybrid support is available, restore will happen on the user's first sign-in after they go through the out-of-box experience, but we still will not be supporting the restore on demand.
All right, excellent. Next question is, what about cross-tenant migration? How is that going to work for everybody?
I can take that. Currently, it is only the same tenant. So because all of the data is stored tenant-based on the tenant storage, so we currently do not support cross-tenant migration. Only if you use the ID from the same tenant and you use the same ID when you do backup and when you do restore, it will work. It will support that scenario.
Excellent. All right, good to know. The next question that we have here looks like it's going to be, if the data is stored on the cloud, what encryption methodologies are going to be used for that?
Yeah, I can take that too. So we use the standard encryption method. We do the encryption at rest and in transition. For encryption at rest, we use the BitLocker to do the encryption. And for the encryption in transit, we use IPsec or transport layer security, the standard encryption method. We all follow the Microsoft standards and compliance and security requirement. Yeah.
Awesome, great. Glad to hear that. Let's see. I think we're waiting on a couple more questions coming through here. Anything you guys wanted to expand on in terms of any of those different topics, though? We can also move on to the next question, too. Looks like we do have one coming through tech community. What are the licensing and maybe storage requirements?
For licensing, it comes with, we do not require additional licensing if you have already have Entra subscribed, and also it is come with a Pro and Enterprise SKU. So yeah, it is free with the Pro and Enterprise and Education SKU licenses. In terms of storage requirement, it's the size of a typical profile takes around 400 KB. That's the typical size of per user profile for backup profile. And so it comes within the same tenant. When you create the tenant, you choose the data location. So it resides inside the same tenant data location that you configured.
Yeah, and that will show as your country or your region in the admin portal. That's where you're prompted to select a location.
Yeah.
Excellent. Very good to hear. All right. Looks like we got another one from tech community. How does this interact or interfere potentially with enterprise state roaming?
I can start that off, and then if Iman or Shilpa, you want to jump in. So enterprise state roaming is a different feature. Roaming is specifically referring to settings that are synchronized across devices in real time when the user account is connected. When it comes to backup and restore, these are device-specific settings, and they aren't necessarily designed to be synchronized across devices that are connected to the user account. So roaming will, allow things maybe like date and time, whereas backup and restore covers things that, you might not necessarily want to be synchronized across devices. An example of that could be your quiet time hours. You might not want to synchronize across devices, or your desktop background, because desktop background is a great indicator of which device you're using when you open it up. So it really simplifies that visual cue of what you're using if you have more than one device. So they are different. They complement each other. They don't necessarily replace one or the other.
Gotcha. Good to know. Looks like we have another one. Does this back up only business data, or does it also handle personal data settings as well? Where can we find information to share with our users on what is being backed up?
So we have our Learn More article, Nate, where it has a list of settings, basically a settings catalog, which shows the list of settings. It's about close to 200 settings that we can back up and restore. Today, these settings are categorized under 5 settings, which we can find on the Windows settings page, which is accessibility, other Windows settings, right? And yes, so what we can back up is the user personalization settings, which is on an AAD or hybrid account. And then restore currently is offered only on the pure Entra device.
Yeah, like Shilpa mentioned, this is about Windows setting your preferences, your own settings on Windows, and store app list. It's not the data backup, like files backup, is not in scope of this project. You can use OneDrive for business or other methods to do files backup and restore or files sync, but only Windows preference, your settings, and store app list are being backup restored in the scope of this project.
Right, and I think for folks, if they want to get information on that, they can go to aka.ms/Windows Backup Docs to learn a little bit more about the nuances around there. But yeah, even in my own experience dealing with personal data and stuff like that from a Microsoft Intune perspective, typically we have policies from the Microsoft side to ensure that your personal data, whether it's your cat photos or dog photos or what have you, is safe and only handled by yourself. We don't interfere with any of that. So let's go to the next question, which is there a way to disable backup for specific categories of settings?
Yeah, I can take that. Yes, there is a way to disable backup of specific categories of settings. We have existing do not sync policies available, which we can configure. So let's say if we do not want to back up personalization, there is an existing do not sync policy that can be set by the IT admin.
Great. Yeah, nice to know that there's a simple and easy way to be able to handle that one.
Yeah, the whole experience is disabled by default. IT admin need to opt in to enable backup. But like Shilpa mentioned, even though you enable backup, you can also turn off the settings for each category. So you have the full control of the flexibility.
Yep.
Great, and that actually does bring me to another question, which is this feature specifically for Windows 10 to Windows 11 migration, or can we use this, to restore on net new devices, for example?
I can take that. So this feature is great when you're upgrading from Windows 10 to 11. It's, the idea is there to make it simpler and quick.
Looks like we might be having some connection issues with Miranda. Hopefully she'll rejoin us here in a moment. Did any one of you guys want to take this one?
Yeah, so yes, this supports Windows 10 to 11. It supports Windows 11 to 11. It supports Windows 11 to maybe Windows 11 Copilot plus PC whenever we have PC refresh cycles or end of life, or in case of any kind of disaster recovery situations, right? This feature can be leveraged.
Yeah.
Good to know that there's some good flexibility there. How does it actually handle things when it comes to a W365 backup, for example?
So Windows 365 backup, currently the backup is enabled if your IT admin. So it's a user targeted policy for the backup policy. So like I mentioned before, backup is disabled by default, and your IT admin needs to configure the policy to enable backup. When they configure the policy, they can choose to enable backup for all users or they can choose a user group or device group. Let's say if they enable backup for Windows 365 devices group, and then the backup will be enabled. Right now, it does not support restore on Windows 365. Current restore only is only supported during out-of-box experience when you set up a new machine. For the scenarios where out-of-box experience is not shown by users, for example, you got a cloud PC, it's already gone through the out-of-box experience, then the current feature, the restore will not work. But backup can be enabled.
Gotcha. Good to know. So that brings me to another question. What is the default backup frequency? Are people able to customize that? Are they able to change it or adjust it?
Yeah, I can take that. So the default backup frequency is every 8 days. Currently, we cannot customize, but we do have Windows Backup app available. So if we want to trigger a just-in-time backup, we can leverage that and go ahead with the backup.
Awesome. Great to know. It's good for people to be able to have that ability to customize and kind of handle it in their own way if they need to.
Yeah. And also one more thing, the Windows Backup app will only be visible to you if your IT admin enable the backup policy.
Right, and that's understandable. We want to ensure from an organizational perspective, we're able to handle those sorts of scenarios.
Yeah.
When setting this up, are there any gotchas or maybe best practices we should be keeping in mind?
I would say when you, so we have two policies to enable the whole experience. The enable backup policy is user targetable, but the restore policy is a tenant-wide policy. We combine these two policies to give you flexibilities as the best customization that will be work for your organization. Only when you enable backup policy for the particular group, and the given user already done a backup successfully and have a backup profile available, only in those cases, when the same user set up a new machine, they will see the restore page. Otherwise, if a user does not have any available backup profile, they will not see the restore page at all. So this gives IT admins the control to enable the experience for a given group. Even though the restore policy cannot be user targeted, but you can target users through the backup policy.
Good. That's nice to know that we have the ability to control that and allow IT admins to be able to kind of customize that and do what they need to do for the organization.
Yeah.
So that brings me to another question, which is how long is data retained? Is there a specific data retention policy? You know, some organizations do things for 30 days, some do it for 7 years. What are the nuances between how we can control that and configure that?
So
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. By default, the data is retained as long as there's an active Microsoft account and device associated with it. But in the case of this feature, the IT admin is the controller, or the company is the controller of the end user's data, while Microsoft just is the processor. And so the company and the admin has full control over that data.
And is there a sort of maximum storage size that's applicable for that as well, from a data retention perspective?
Not at this point of time.
Okay, good to know. All right, let's see if we got any additional questions coming in here. Looks like we got another one that says, does it only store the latest backup or more than that? So if more, how many? So are you able to do multiple restore points, for example, or just one singular one?
So, Iman, go ahead.
Okay. So for a given user, a given device, we only store the latest backup per device, per user. So if you have multiple devices, we will store the latest backup on each of the devices under your AAD account. But for a same device, we only store the latest one.
Gotcha. Okay, good to know. Let's see, I think we only got a handful of minutes left, but we'll see how many additional questions we can get through here for everybody. See if we get any more coming through. From the Windows 11 perspective, it looks and feels significantly different than Windows 10. Are the settings the same for the restore functionality, though?
Yes, they are. So while the look when you move from Windows 10 to 11 will be different, shared settings across both versions of Windows would be the same. And so, for example, if you're backing up and restoring your time and date, it will still show up the same on your Windows 11 device, even if the UI were to look a little different.
Yeah. In addition to that, there are some settings which are only present on Windows 10, but not on Windows 11. The Learn More page that Shilpa mentioned earlier has a detailed list of the settings per each for Windows 10 versus Windows 11, what are supported, what are not. So it has a very detailed list of all of the settings available. Like Miranda mentioned, if the settings are same across Windows 10, Windows 11, you will be able to back up on Windows 10, then restore on Windows 11. If a setting does not exist on Windows 10, but only exists on Windows 11, you can do that between Windows 11 and Windows 11 machine.
Gotcha. Good to know. And then sort of a longer question here. So if we want to back up all of our remaining Windows 10 devices and restore those settings on the new Windows 11 devices, how many times would you estimate this to take, or how much time would you estimate that to take? How long would our users be without their devices potentially?
So is this question specifically asking about how long the restore process through the out-of-box experience takes?
Yeah, I believe so. At least based off the context that I have, it seems to be that is kind of the nature of it.
Yeah. So this is come along with the out-of-box. When you set up a new machine or you reset a machine, and the out-of-box experience runs, we will add the restore experience, the restore page on top of that. It comes up as a part of the out-of-box experience. The additional time that restore will take, we do download the data during restore. The download can come very fast, like a few seconds, of course, based on your network connection. And then the restore of the actual setting happens during your first sign in to your, after the out-of-box experience done, you sign into your Windows device. During first sign in as a Windows startup, we will restore the settings for you. It's also pretty quick. We don't expect an extra long wait added to your out-of-box experience.
Gotcha. Good to know. Yeah. And obviously, restoring the data can depend on how much data was backed up. But related to that question, does the user need to be present during the restore, or can they do it offline? Will they be able to open their new Windows 11 device while their settings are restored? You kind of already answered that a little bit in terms of the out-of-box experience. But does the user need to be present? I think is kind of the main one there.
So to initiate the restore functionality, the admin has to set the backup and restore policies, and then the end user is the one who actually initiates that restore. So when they go through the out-of-box experience, they will see the page asking them if they want to restore a backup that was found. In that case, the end user does need to say, yes, I'd like to restore. If they have more than one backup, they can choose, or they can choose to set up as a new PC if they do not want to restore their backup. So in that case, in that scenario, yes, the user does need to be going through that out-of-box experience and choosing to do that restore. They do need to interact.
Perfect. All right.
Like the other out-of-box experience page is once you make your selection and once the install is in progress, and then you can feel free to grab a coffee or something, and you do not need to wait there.
Yep.
All right. Perfect. Good to know. Well, I think that's all we have time for here today. So I wanted to thank the people here, Iman, Miranda, Shilpa, thanks for your time and answering everybody's questions. And thanks everyone who are joining the AMA. We'll talk to you again soon, and then hope you have a good rest of the day and a good rest of the week.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.